Okie dokie, artichoke. Hi, my name is Mitchell. Oh my god. Mellow. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our three favorite things: talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. We are back again. We survived Snowmageddon.
We did survive, just barely.
Yeah,
Just barely. It was tough, man.
It was a tough couple of days. The reason we did not get a podcast out last week is because neither of us had power.
Well, the state of Texas did not have power.
We were under snow and no one knew what to do with it, and so we were stuck without power, without any way to communicate with each other, and without any way to really record a podcast. So sorry for anybody who was upset by the fact that we missed last week, but we did our best, and there was literally no way to record.
Yeah, no, it was, I'm sure as everyone saw in the news, or, you know, all of our friends here in Dallas that may be listening, DFW, but it's just, it was out of nowhere. It was brutal. It was rough. And yeah, there was no way that we could get on the pod and get a new one out. But it's so nice to be back.
Yes, it is ironic that the one podcast we're like, all right, on Wednesdays, you can count on us. And then
the next Wednesday,
the
very next one,
we go through Snowmageddon and just tough. So Wednesdays going forward, I promise,
we will be good about this.
Barring some other natural crazy disaster going on, we will have a podcast.
Yeah, barring the tornado that's going to come through next week.
Next thing you know, earthquake. You never know.
Yeah, we're going to have the California earthquake hit us here now. No, I'm very happy that we got through that. You know, it's weird. Like 3 days later, here we are. It's like 75 degrees in Texas. But I'm glad that we got through that. I'm glad that all of our friends got to be healthy and got through the whole weirdness. And we are very excited to be moving forward.
Yes, and the NBA has been busy while we were gone.
Oh yeah, they didn't stop.
A lot has happened. All-Stars. We have All-Stars now.
As of today. So, well, last week we got the starters. And then today, as in Tuesday.
We are pre-recording this Tuesday night. You guys will see this tomorrow morning. Yeah, we have a full All-Star team, both East and West.
Yeah. You know, my favorite part was TNT was like, we're going to reveal all of the All-Star reserves tonight on TNT, you know, watch the pregame. And then Shams at noon is like, nah, I'm going to tell everyone what actually is on the team.
It's like during draft night where everybody is like, hey, this team is really targeting this guy. I can't tweet that they're going to draft this guy, but they're really targeting this guy.
Yeah. I saw a bunch of stuff. I was like, man, this is taking like the Woj stuff to a whole new level. It's just totally screwing over TNT, what they had going on like
TNT
tonight.
Cannot be happy.
Oh, no, they are not happy at all. But, yeah, we have our full all-star teams out now.
And that is what we're talking about today. We're going to talk East, we're going to talk West, and we're going to talk snubs. We're just going to kind of break down the all-star teams. We're not going to go into crazy depth on each person or each player on the team, but we'll give a good overview and talk about snubs, talk about different things that we think should be happening with the all-star game, what's going on, what we could think, and who your all-stars are, and introduce you guys to the team.
Absolutely. But you know, before we get to that,
every time you just, hey, but before we do that, I think that we should talk about alcohol. I like alcohol.
It kept me warm last week.
It really did. The whiskey reserves are running dry.
Oh, dude, we're never dry on whiskey here, and it was running
dangerously
real low. So what we have today is Whistle Pig Piggyback 100% rye that has been aged 6 years in American oak barrels. And
a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. Really, it's Whistle Pig Piggyback is the name of this specific whiskey. Whistle Pig has had other stuff, and this is kind of a higher end. Thanks to your father helping us out with the...
yeah, my dad hooked me up with a birthday present of... it's basically like a delivery thing for whiskey where once a month I get a bottle of whiskey, and this is February's edition.
Yeah. And this is a nice bottle.
So shout out Dad.
Yeah. Shout out Mr. Crocker. Thank you very much. It has a very cool looking bottle to start off with, but it's definitely one of the nicer ones that we've had, and it has a very complex palate.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on to it. I would like, this is not one that a first time whiskey drinker, like, they probably drink it and be like, but like for me, I'd take a sip of it and like, oh wow, there's like a lot to like kind of like go through and digest.
There's a lot to break down in this, and we'll get into it later in the podcast, but you got a little history lesson on it.
I do. Another fun part of the getting the whiskey shipped to you through a like a month-to-month thing is they also send us a little story about our whiskey. So it is, the producer is Whistle Pig, the brand owner is Raj Bhaktz, Bhaktz. Don't know how to say it. Sorry, I butchered it, founder. It is a straight rye whiskey, and it comes out of Vermont. It's sourced from Canada with a 100% rye mash bill, which earlier you were saying is a little weedy. That's kind of where that comes from, it's 100% rye. Whistlepig launched this offering in 2019 as a permanent addition to their core range, crafted by the late famed master distiller Dave Pickerel, who is also the former chairman of the Kentucky Distillers Association, which I don't know if you've heard, Kentucky makes a lot of whiskey.
Most of the whiskeys we drink.
Most of the whiskeys. This 6-year-old rye is this 6-year-old rye is one of his last expressions, and it's every inch this doesn't read right. And it's every inch the powerful, complex rye whiskey he meant it to be, bottled at an unusual 96.56% proof, which I'm always a fan of. And then the rest of it is a bunch of like flavors. So I'm going to see if you can guess any of these.
Now or later?
Oh, later. No. That's gonna be later on. But yeah, Whistlepig. I think it's a bit of a newer brand. Oh, also I want to give a shout out to David Dunmoyer, who at one point told me that we need to do Whistlepig on the podcast. So
we're doing it.
Quick shout out to my old roommate David. I hope you're listening. He said that he's been listening to our podcast more and more. But yes. Whistlepig, it's a bit of a newer brand. It does come out of Vermont, which is kind of random. They get most of their ingredients out of Canada, but I am quite enjoying it so far. It's just it definitely is a different kind of palate that if you've gotten used to drinking whiskey like I have over the course of this podcast, I now like appreciate this a lot more than I think I would have at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm able to break down what I'm tasting, but I'm able to be like, oh, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here. And we'll unpack that later after we get through our first little bit on the All-Star team. Do you want to start with the Eastern or Western Conference team?
I think that we start with the West.
All right, so let's start with the West. Let's talk starters.
All right, who's our starters?
So the starters for the Western Conference, your captain is LeBron James, who has been the captain since forever.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah, he's your captain. You have Nikola Jokic starting, I believe, his first All-Star game. He's been in All-Star games before, but this is his first time as a starter.
Yes,
is what I'm trying to say. And then you have Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, and Luka Doncic.
You know, it's weird. Is there a name that's not on that list that should be on that list?
Very much so. There has been a bit of an outcry for Damian Lillard to be a starter in the All-Star game this year.
That's right. Damian Lillard. I almost forgot about him. Just like the rest of the world. Yeah, I had to throw that in there.
There has been some outcry that Damian should be starting in the All-Star game as opposed to Luka Doncic. In fact, Luka himself came out and said that he thinks that Damian should be starting in his place. That being said, Luka is the starter.
Now, a lot of people have come up to me and asked me how I feel about the Dame not starting thing. And there's a couple ways. I mean, one is like I'm a little bummed out. It would have been cool to have him be a starter. He consistently over the course of his career has kind of like always been knocked down a notch. Of like he's like, it's like, oh, like you should be a starter or you should be an all-star, but you're not going to be an all-star until Kobe was taken out and then he got his first all-star game. Like, it always is like, there's like a little thing that like he kind of gets bumped down. It's like, oh, you could be a starter, but you're not going to be a starter sort of thing. And that is a bummer. And as a Blazer fan, I'm kind of excited because that just like fuels fire to Dame's like chip on his shoulder that he's always all about. And also at the end of your career, nobody cares about how many All-Star games you started.
It's just the amount that you've got to.
Exactly.
No one cares how many you started. Yeah, that's a big point here. Starting versus not starting doesn't change Hall of Fame ballot consideration. If you made the All-Star game, you made the All-Star game.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really not that upset about the entire thing. That being said, I do think that he should have started. We're going to have this argument at some point, but like he is on the better team, and I think that should be noted. I think that Luka definitely puts up better stats in the assists and rebounds category, but Dame is way more efficient in the scoring category. And I think that Dame is one of the, like, aside from Luka tonight, Dame is usually the guy that's like you want in those clutch situations, and like he's like one of the most feared guys in the entire NBA right now, and I think that it's not like he needs to be respected and he should have been given the chance to be a starter, because I don't think it'll ever happen again. Because Luka will start every year going forward.
Luka will start every year going forward. He's going to be a great player. He is a great player. I am of the opinion that Luka is putting up better stats, and this is something you and I disagree on, and we've talked about this off mic, but you think more team success matters in All-Star games, and I think it's more just like how you play as a player, stats, and all that stuff. And Luka's just putting up better stats this year, and this is not a knock on Dame. He's a great player. I mean, he's third in MVP voting right now, but he's also getting the benefit of he's played great the last month. And I'm not saying he's played bad all year, but he's played out of this world the last month, where he's playing at an all-star starter caliber level. Luka's been doing it all year long.
And that's totally fair. I would make the argument that if a guy is third in MVP voting, he probably should be a starter in the All-Star game.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there. I honestly think, and I've heard this argument actually on the radio today, that it shouldn't even be a Luka versus Dame debate. It's only because they restrict positions that it should be a debate. But Kawhi Leonard has not played a lot this year, and he's putting up good Kawhi stats, but Kawhi isn't putting up starter caliber starting in the NBA All-Star game caliber numbers this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The Clippers are obviously good. I mean, Paul George is playing really well. Kawhi obviously is doing Kawhi stuff, but I don't think that he's doing anything that deserves an All-Star starting spot over Luka or over Dame. I mean, I'm with you. I think that it should be Jokic, LeBron, Luka, Dame, Steph.
I would agree.
And Kawhi should be coming off the bench, but they have this like front court, back court rule. It's like, it's an all-star game. Just get rid of all the rules. If we have 5 point guards, that'd be super fun to watch. Like, who cares?
I mean, and it's safe to say the 100% locks are LeBron, Jokic, and Curry. Those guys are for sure starters. Those guys are solidified in stone, no question in my mind. Then you get to that Luka and Dame debate, which is what everyone's having right now, which is who's better, and it's this weird rivalry that the people are trying to make a thing, which is hilarious because these guys have nothing but respect for each other. And I mean, Luka's the first to admit Luka might be one of the most self-aware stars in the NBA, where he's like, yeah, I'm sucking this year. I'm starting in the All-Star game, but I really shouldn't be, and I'm kind of sucking this year. And he's said that multiple times. And like he's came out and said before, he's like, I'm not playing like a guy who should get a max in 2 years. Like, he's come out and said these things. And so it's this weird debate between the two. And then there's Kawhi, who's just the best small forward, not named LeBron, in the West. And so I guess we have to give it to him.
Yeah, it's definitely like an interesting deal. I was starting to look up some stats, because I think that like you could even make the argument that Dame is playing just as well as Steph is this year. I mean, it's a little bit different. Steph is like really having to backpack his team this year. Really doesn't have much at Draymond, but like Dame has not had CJ and Nurk most of the year. They're putting out very comparable stats. Like Dame is 29.8 points per game, where Steph is 29.9 points per game. Dame is 7.9 assists, where Steph is... Oh, my phone is breaking on me. I need to get a new phone. Where Steph is 6.2 assists. Like, Dame is arguably putting up better stats on a better teams. Like, I think that Dame should be starting over Steph. I think Dame should start over Kawhi, Steph, and Luka. And I'm obviously biased, but like his stats and like the way he's playing this year is kind of showing it. And that's why he's being talked about as an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he's playing well, but I stand by it. It's one of those "what have you done for me lately's" type of things, where he's played well all year, but he has played ungodly the past couple of weeks. And like, if he wasn't playing ungodly the past couple of weeks, I don't think it would be much of a discussion. Like, if it was normal Dame, I think Luka leading the league in triple doubles, and he's top 5 in scoring. He's number 3 in assists, and he's top 20 in rebounding. Like, that guy should be starting in the All-Star game.
Yes, no, I agree with you. I love Luka. I've always been a big Luka supporter. It really was cool to me that Luka came out and even says like, I kind of think that Dame should be starting this year, because he really didn't have to say that at all. Like,
yeah, no,
you know, like
again, I said this before, he's one of the more self-aware players in the NBA.
Yeah,
where he is the first to just talk shit on himself, which is kind of frustrating because you're like, dude, you're good, just admit it type thing. But like, he's the first to just kind of knock himself down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With Luka, it has been like a class act. He's been really cool. People are complaining about Luka with him and his flopping, but still, I haven't seen any like ego issues with Luka. It seems like he's been a really normal kind of chill guy. The fact that he even said that about, Dame should start over him, I think says a lot about him. It's very humbling. I think he also realizes he's only like 21, 22 years old or whatever.
His time will come.
His time will come. He's still, they say that your prime hits from 26 to 30, 31. So he's still like 5 years away from his best version of himself.
Yeah.
And
he's got a long way to go. He's definitely got some maturing to do, but he has definitely got a good head on his shoulders for where he is in his life, in like his stages of life.
Yeah.
In terms of his NBA career.
Yeah.
I also think that the big knock on him is that his team has been struggling. And now they're 500 after his heroics tonight. And for those of you who didn't watch TNT tonight, Luka hit 2 big monumental threes, including a game winner with like 15 seconds left in the game.
He loves that left side of the court.
And then he hit one as time expired to win the game against the Celtics, which was a just absolute firecracker. But now they're 500, and so that you can't really knock the Mavs for being 500 in a tough Western Conference with all the injuries they've had. I mean, yes, Dame is dealing with injuries as well, but like, it's one of those things where like, that was one of the knocks on Luka, was like, well, you're not even 500, and now they are.
That's totally fair. No one's gonna convince me otherwise. I'm obviously biased. I love Dame. Dame is my favorite basketball player I've ever had the privilege to watch. I hear you pouring another glass over there.
Whistle pig, baby.
Whistle pig, man. I think that Dame is always kind of cut short. I think that a big part of it is because he plays in Portland and people don't watch Portland. The games are later, even if you are playing on TNT, like we're here in Fort Worth and the games doesn't even start until 9:00 at night. So a lot of people don't watch the games, even if they are on national TV. It's a small market, so no one's paying a lot of attention. And Dame is the classic chip on your shoulder, like kind of like continually like have one more little thing to like push him, like the Jordan meme. Like I was offended by that,
and I took that personally.
Like Dame is totally that guy. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to end up being a good thing for us. I think us as in the Blazers.
You play for the team?
I do play for the team. I did work for the team. But it's one of those things where I think it's going to end up being a good thing for him. It really, at the end of your career, doesn't matter. This is still going to be his 6th All-Star game, whether he was a starter or not a starter. So it really doesn't matter. I just kind of hope that he's in at the end of the All-Star game. Which I think he might be.
He might be. He probably will
Put him over Kawhi. Kawhi didn't do anything.
I mean, Luka barely played his first All-Star game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he barely plays this All-Star game. And we haven't talked about this yet, but there's a good chance that a lot of players opt out of this All-Star game because of the whole COVID-19 situation, because of the whole how shortened the season is and how many more games they're playing. It depends on the second half of the schedule, which they haven't released yet to this point. There's a lot of players that could be like, nah, I don't. I'd rather just sit out and just take the week and get ready for the next part of the season, and that would leave a lot of open spots. There could be a spot in the starting lineup. There's already a spot on the Western Reserve bench, which we need to get into because we're already a good chunk into this podcast and we have a long way to go.
Yeah, so let's get into the reserves.
But before we do that, there's a good chance that there's going to be some openings for other people to fill in. So when we talk snubs, we're not saying that these guys might not be playing because there's a chance that they might be, depending on if
who's backing out, who wants to play in it.
Yeah.
This is it's a weird year overall.
year.
It's going to be a weird All-Star game. There's already been stars that have kind of complained about it. De'Aaron Fox at one point said that he wouldn't show up if he
LeBron's had some things.
LeBron's had some thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm sure LeBron will end up showing up. He's the ambassador of the league.
He will end up. The NBA will make him show up.
He will show up.
But that leaves spots, is what I'm saying. Let's get into these All-Star reserves, headlined by Damian Lillard. So the guys coming off the bench in the West are Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Rudy Gobert, Paul George, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson. A lot to unpack here. 2 Jazz players, a Clippers player, a Suns player, a Blazer, a Pelican, and then a Laker. The thing with Anthony Davis is he's hurt and probably will not play, so that leaves an opening.
Yes, and it's pretty obvious who that opening is going to go to. It's Devin Booker.
It should go to Devin Booker. Nothing's been announced yet, but it should go to Devin Booker.
It should go to Devin Booker, but if you ask me, it will go to Devin Booker. It's kind of a foregone conclusion. As soon as the Western Conference reserves came out, the first thing that came across social media everywhere was where the hell is Devin Booker? Why is Devin Booker not on this team? The fact that
why did Chris Paul make
the team over Devin Booker is very interesting. Chris Paul, obviously his impact to a team and the winning of a team can't even really be calculated. He shows up and he's a great leader. And he does everything well on the basketball court, and it takes a team like the Suns, who are trying to get into the playoffs kind of team, to oh my Lord, this is a real good team. Probably should be top 4, minimum going to be a top 6 seed in the West. Playing super well so far this year. And how much is it the fact that Chris Paul was the guy that put him over the edge, or Devin Booker? I'm pretty sure is still has better stats. He's still the guy that they go to for the last shot. He's still the guy that I think that they consider to be their go-to guy on that team. But Chris Paul got the nod, in my opinion, because of his longevity in the league and his status in the league as how long he's been there.
Yeah, I mean, the stats
I don't think he's better.
The stats he's putting up, Chris Paul, are impressive, but not all-star worthy in my opinion. 16.6 points, 8.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and a steal a game, while shooting around 39% from 3 and 48 from the field those are good splits. He's not a bad player. He's playing well, but that doesn't mean that he should be an all-star, especially over his running mate, Devin Booker, who has been balling out.
Yes.
Not by Devin Booker standards. He's having a rough year in terms of his shooting splits, but his scoring and everything else is still there. It's just not as efficient as it normally is.
And it's been picking up lately. It started off a little rough. The Chris Paul, Devin Booker experiment took a little bit to figure out because, both guys like to have the ball. Devin Booker spent the majority of the last several years pretty much playing pseudo point guard just because he was the best player on the team, and so he's running a lot of pick and rolls and stuff. And now it's okay, how do I play off of Chris Paul and still get my numbers and still be the guys? How is this going to work? Now it really feels like it's all coming together here near the tail end of the first half of the season or first part of the season, because we're actually only going to be 40% done or 38% done with the amount of games by the time the All-Star break actually happens.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go.
We still got a long way to go. So very interesting that Devin Booker didn't make it. That being said, Anthony Davis is probably not going to play due to his Achilles tendonitis.
Yes.
Is what it is?
He reactivated his Achilles tendonitis. He is out for as of, I think, a week ago, 2 to 4 weeks. I know this because he's on my fantasy team and he is killing me. But yes, so he will be out of the All-Star game, barring something crazy. I think it's also worth noting that the reserves don't necessarily have the same forward guard restrictions as the starting lineup does.
Yeah, well,
it does and it doesn't.
So it does and it doesn't, because they still do the 2 backcourt, 3 front court, and 2 wild cards.
Yes, but the wild cards makes it So like you can swap in Anthony Davis for Devin Booker and it's fine type thing. So like
Yes.
you can move the wild card from person to person to where they basically can come up with almost any combination that they need to.
Well, they come up with the first 12, and then after the first 12 is like announced, if someone backs out, they just take the best player after that.
Yeah.
So for the reserves, they like as the coaches, they vote, their favorite backcourt, favorite front court, and then 2 wild card spots. Like that's how it's like the paper that they're given. That's how it's listed out. But yeah, once Anthony Davis is out, then it's like, oh, we'll just put Devin Booker in.
Yeah, and then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore.
So again, barring something crazy, Devin Booker will be an all-star. It's just he didn't get there by the traditional means.
Yes.
Which is the same as last year.
Yeah.
He made it last year because someone else was hurt. I can't remember who, but someone else didn't end up.
It was
going.
Dame.
Dame didn't end up going.
Dame was out, and then Dame said Devin Booker should take my spot, and they gave Devin Booker the spot.
And so Devin Booker got there last year again on reserve, which is another reason why there's so much outcries. Like this guy got snubbed last year. He can't get snubbed again. And he got snubbed again.
Yeah, exactly. I think like real quickly, one other guy that's interesting is the Zion thing. I've been vocal about how I think that Zion has gotten too much credit for not enough production or not enough time in the league or whatever. Zion is playing really well this year. And
he's one of the most efficient players in the league.
Yes, the fact that he scores, 30 points on 15 of 17 from the field and he's turning it into more of a consistent thing for himself it goes to show how amazing Zion is. And I have a feeling that maybe he's like really focusing on offense this year, but he is severely lacked in rebounding and defense. And I think that there was probably some other guys you could look at, and like I personally would have rather either Booker or DeRozan get that spot,
or Brandon Ingram, his teammate,
teammate.
I stand by. Brandon Ingram's the better player than Zion.
Yes,
Brandon Ingram's the best player on that team. So the fact that the fan vote is a big part of this, which is why again Luka probably made it over Dame because of the fan vote.
Yes,
Zion probably made it in because of the fan vote.
Well, the reserves is just coaches. It was coaches put Zion in.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I think that Zion is really good. I think he's awesome. He's going to be really good for a long time, barring he can, the amount of torque he puts on his body doesn't deteriorate or anything like that. If he stays healthy, he's going to be really good. He's averaging like 25%, or he's averaging 25 points on like 60% shooting from the field because he is like everything he shoots is dunks and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say that he doesn't deserve to be in the All-Star game, but there was other guys I would have personally rather seen Booker or DeRozan make it.
Yeah, DeRozan also is having a very good year for the Spurs, who are over
6.
Yeah, who are overperforming by a lot. We still again have a long way to go.
They're the only team in the playoffs right now that don't have an All-Star.
That's wild.
At least for the Western Conference.
For the Western Conference.
Yeah.
That kind of wraps up the East. Everyone else is kind of obviously an all-star. You've got, Paul George, obviously an all-star. AD, obviously an all-star. Gobert and Mitchell are obviously all-stars. The Jazz are playing as well as they are. Definitely deserve 2 all-stars. Lillard should be a starter, but is obviously coming off the bench. We talked Paul versus Booker, and then we talked Zion. That's it. Rounding out everything on the West outside the starters. And I don't think there's a starter out there that shouldn't be on an all-star team. There's not an all-star starter in the West that shouldn't even make the team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So everyone here deserves to be here. There's just some people that might deserve it more, a.k.a. Booker over Zion, I think is what we both agree on.
Yeah, and right before we move on to the whiskey, I just want to give the shout-outs to the guys who were snubs that we haven't talked about. Conley is a guy that probably could have had a chance of making the All-Star game. A lot of people were talking about he could be a guy they put in over Booker, actually. DeRozan, same position. Ja Morant playing awesome, keeping his team afloat with a lot of injuries. De'Aaron Fox playing really well before going on that 7-game losing streak. The Kings are right there in the mix with everybody else. Shai Gilgeous is playing really well this year. Both John Wall and Christian.
Out. Yeah. Shai Gilgeous is balling out.
Yeah.
You got to acknowledge that. Christian Wood, if he wasn't hurt, I think he had a better chance, but he did miss like a month and a half.
Yeah. And John Wall being on an 11 and 18 Rockets, you're not going to make it. Same argument with D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah. D'Lo hasn't played enough games.
Yeah. And neither has Cat.
No. And Cat's barely played at all. Before we move on to the Eastern Conference, let's revisit Piggyback. Let's get into this whiskey. Yes, we are flying through these. There's a lot to talk about, and we're trying to one of the things we have heard through our followers is that our podcasts tend to go a little long and get a little tangential.
Sorry.
And that means we go on a lot of tangents, so we're trying to stick to the point, go through it and just rifle through these. So let's get to the whiskey.
All right, let's get to the whiskey. I am really enjoying it. I'm drinking a glass without ice right now.
As am I.
And
I've graduated ice.
Look at
people,
you.
My day ones out there. Can we acknowledge how far I've come? If you haven't listened to our first couple of podcasts, go back, give them a listen, and listen to how much of a bitch I sound like.
I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so proud of you.
Drinking it without ice, and yes, I deserve a pat on the freaking back.
You're doing great. High fives. Is there any specific flavor? There was one flavor that like I definitely noticed, and then I read this and it was on this list. But there's one thing I really noticed at first. Do you have any like flavors that really pop out to you?
I get a lot
of. If not, that's okay.
I get a lot of wheat.
Yep.
Like I get a lot of wheat to it. I get some spice on the back end.
Mm-hmm. It's hard because it definitely burns. Like when you swallow, it's got more of a burn.
It's got a decent amount of burn to it. Hold on, I need one more.
That was me doing that sound, not Heath. You can say no if you don't have anything.
I'm thinking. It's on the tip of my tongue what it is. I have a taste and I can't put it into words. You ever been there where
yes.
I just don't know what it is? And
okay,
tell me what it is.
I'm going to start saying some stuff and you tell me if it hits.
Okay.
The first thing that I thought of was definitely like, oh wow, this is like there's a lot of spice, like there's a lot of different spices going on, and then the one's like it's not necessarily a spice, but the one like flavor I kind of like caught on to was like cinnamon. It's not a cinnamon whiskey. It's not a cinnamon whiskey. Like it's not like drinking Fireball. But
I get the burn of like drinking like a cinnamony drink.
Well, it's almost like the numbness on like the tip of your tongue.
I get that. I definitely get that.
That's where I get the cinnamon from.
I get that. But I don't know if it's cinnamon though.
The one other thing I really got from it was a smoky. I got like a smoky flavor.
I do get smoky. It was hickory was what I was getting, like hickory smoked barbecue.
Yeah,
what I was getting. That's the one that was tripping me up. I didn't know what to say there, but I was getting hickory.
Well, here's some of the stuff that the paper tells us.
The all-seeing paper.
Yeah, cinnamon, black pepper, dried apricot, a bit of orange zest. I get a little bit of the orange.
I get the hints of orange now that you say that.
Spicy wood notes dominate on the intense yet smooth palate. That's what you're talking about with hickory. Like the hickory. Along with cardamom, ginger snaps, and vanilla punctuating an otherwise smoky character. That's funny. I don't get a whole lot of vanilla.
I do not get vanilla in this at all.
The long lingering finish features baking spices, vanilla, leather, and tobacco, along with ripe peach undertones. Nothing like a good taste of leather in your mouth.
About to say, who tastes leather and be like, yep, I want to put that in a whiskey.
Oh man, leather. We really need to infuse
that. You ever
lick
a car seat and be like, damn, that should be a good whiskey.
Like, oh man, it's a good taste in boot. Yes. Whistle Pig, this is the fancier version. This is the aged 6 years in American oaks, 100% rye. It's called the Piggyback. Very good. I really like it. If you're a whiskey guy, I think that you will definitely lean on this.
I've gotten to the point where I can drink it without ice, and it's complex. There's a lot going on here. It's definitely a sipper. Like you're not taking gulps of this bad boy. You're sipping this thing.
Yeah.
But that being said, it is an easier, I shouldn't say an easier sipper, but it's definitely something where every sip you're like trying to pick up on something new.
Yes.
Like there's enough here to where every sip you're like, ooh, I'm picking up on something different than I was before.
And just enough burn to like, feel it and like know that you're drinking a bit of a fancier whiskey, but not enough to like throw you off or like make you not want to drink more than one glass of it, because it's good stuff.
Yeah. So if you are like on the cusp of trying to like start becoming like a whiskey guy, this is a good like transition from like, all right, I'm done with like the easy stuff, but I'm ready to get into like the nicer like burnier stuff. This is a good like transition.
I would totally agree with that.
It's the training wheels. With that.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I totally agree. It's a great transition whiskey if you're trying to pick it up a little more, trying to pick up a little more flavors. This has a whole bunch of flavors in it, so this would be a good one to pick up on it.
Absolutely. All right, you want to get into the East?
I would love to get into the East.
All right,
let's do it.
Let's break into the Eastern Conference here. I'm looking up the All-Star roster. I do know Kevin Durant is your your captain of the Eastern Conference, coming off a
Makes
torn
sense.
Achilles. He's playing really well this year. He hasn't played in as many games as we thought he would right off the bat, but he has been very effective when he's been playing.
I mean, yeah, Kevin Durant's really good at basketball, and he came back from an Achilles injury and was arguably better at the basketball than he was before the Achilles injury, which, I mean, the Achilles injury is starting to turn a little bit like the ACL at one point was like a career killer, and then it turned into like, oh, well, we know how to rehab for it now, and like if you take your time, like you'll be back fine. The Achilles is starting to turn into that a little bit too, because like no more than 3 or 4 years ago, it was considered a career killer. Yeah.
You're done.
And the fact that Kevin Durant's coming back and playing the way that he can, and granted, his game was never based on pure athleticism or quickness or anything like that. He's more of a smooth, silky, kind of finisher kind of guy. That's why, like, maybe that's why it helps him a little bit more. But it is amazing what he's doing right now.
Yeah, he is playing exceptionally well, definitely exceeding expectations coming off that Achilles tear. Moving on to the other starters, you got Giannis. I mean, nothing to say there. It's Giannis.
The two-time reigning MVP that nobody wants to give an MVP to this year.
That should get it again, but he won't. Yes, Giannis. Bradley Beal, leading the NBA in scoring, getting the start. Bradley Beal playing very well this year. Joel Embiid, which could very well be your MVP this year. He's in the running for sure. And then the wild card here is Kyrie Irving is starting, which is wild to me.
I find their backcourt to be really interesting because, I mean, Bradley Beal leading the NBA in scoring, obviously he's an all-star,
yes,
right?
You can't leave the points per game leader out of the all-star game.
100%. That being said, I'm going to go back to the team argument. Your boy is playing on an 11-17 team in the Eastern Conference. Like, come on, man. Like, I understand. Like, you're doing everything you can. Like, you're leading the NBA in scoring. What more do you want from the guy? But you're in the East. You got to win more games.
You can't fault the guy for the team that's around him. And I stand by that. You cannot bring a guy down because his management can not put a good team around him. The guy is leading the league in scoring. When it comes down to the end of the game, no one cares how many more rebounds, assists you get. It's points. And Bradley Beal is putting more points up on the board than any other player in the NBA.
I get it. I totally get it. I personally don't think I would have had him starting. I would have had him coming off the bench. I don't think you can start a guy that is on an 11, 17, 13th seed in the conference.
You're faulting a guy for their management.
Yeah.
That's not his fault.
Yes, but
he can only suit up and play and score points.
Yes, but it's all you can do is suit up and play and score points,
and he does that better than everyone else.
And try to win the game, which he does not do better than anyone else.
You can't. He's playing 1-on-5 right now.
He's not playing 1-on-5. The Wizards actually have some good players.
Okay, but he's playing 1-on-5 right now.
Look, the Wizards actually have some decent personnel. I don't think they've totally put it together.
Some of their decent personnel, because I want you to say Russell Westbrook is some of their decent personnel.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook is a decent player. Also, not on the All-Star team, which is kind of weird. We'll get to that later. I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later. But look, he's a starter. Good for him.
He should be starting.
But the Kyrie Irving thing.
Kyrie one's weird. I will give you the Kyrie one's weird. Bradley Beal is not
starting.
Weird. I think Harden
He showed up too late to the party?
Where, I mean, he split time between the Western and the Eastern Conference, and he was one of those guys where he's had a foot in both corners, and he's like, I don't know what to do.
It's like he just showed up to the party, all the beer was gone, all the beer pong tables were taken. He was just standing in the corner. He's like, well, at least I'm here. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, so I think Harden was a perfect casualty of being in both conferences, where both conferences like, well, we can't start him. But so I guess it goes to Kyrie. I don't know if I agree that Kyrie was the best option here for starting, but I do heavily agree with the other four. Durant, Giannis, Beal, and Embiid should be starting in the Western Conference.
And that's fair. If it was me, I would have rather had Harden and Jaylen Brown, but to each their own. All those guys are all-stars anyways.
Yeah,
all those guys are all-stars anyways.
It's the Luka Dame argument where we're going to go in circles. Starting does not mean anything. That being said,
I want to see
those are your starters.
I'm interested to see who closes the game because now that the closing of the game actually matters, which by the way,
last year's All-Star game was one of the best in recent memory because the format made it competitive at the end of the game.
Exactly. Yes. And so what made the format so fun and competitive was that each team is playing for a specific charity, and the winner of each quarter wins, is like $50,000 per quarter or something like that.
Let's take a minute here and break down what's happening. Like, what's the All-Star format real quick? We should have done this at the beginning of the pod. We didn't. We're doing it now.
Yeah, so they're actually going back to the Kobe Bryant format, which last year what they did is in each quarter, what they're doing is they're playing for money for charity. Each team has the individual charities that they're playing for.
So the Western Conference team will pick a charity and the Eastern Conference team will pick a charity.
Yeah, and actually a really cool part of it this year is that they're going to HBCUs.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, each team has their own HBCU that they're representing. And I don't know the exact number because they haven't actually said yet. But last year, it was $50,000 to the winner of the first quarter goes to their charity.
So start at 0. At the end of the first quarter, highest scoring team gets $50,000 to their charity.
Yes. Second quarter, same premise.
Start at 0.
Start at 0. Like the game continues with like the same amount of points. It could be 25-35, but that quarter starts at 0. And then the winner of that quarter gets the money for their charity. And then it continues on, and then the last quarter, this is where the Kobe Bryant rules come in, where let's say it's 100 to 90 going into it. 24 points on top of the team that is in the lead will win the game.
So basically what it's saying is if you're winning in the fourth quarter, you have to score 24 points to win.
Yes.
If you're losing, you basically have to score... You have to tie the game and then score 24 points in order to win.
Yes, exactly. So if you're down 10, you got to score 34 points to win, and it's win by 2.
Yes, so, which made it very competitive at the end. The fourth quarter of last year's All-Star game was my favorite All-Star game I've ever watched. It was awesome.
I remember standing up and like cheering and going
Kyle Lowry
wild.
took like 3 charges.
Kyle Lowry out here taking charges. It was awesome.
It was amazing.
I think it's the perfect format. I think that they're going to continue to do this forever. I think that it's the perfect I don't know how to say it, but homage to Kobe Bryant on top of the Finals MVP or the All-Star Game MVP trophy being the Kobe Bryant trophy. Now it's a perfect homage, perfect tribute for Kobe Bryant. I mean, the man took every game seriously, so
why not take this one seriously?
He always took All-Star games more seriously than everyone else did.
My one qualm with the way that they run things in the All-Star Game this year or last year was it ended on free throws.
Yeah, that was a bit anticlimactic.
And I want to figure out I want to know if they can figure out a way to make it so that they don't end on like free throws where it comes a foul game at the end of the game or something like that. And I'm not sure what that answer is. I'm not sure if there's something out there. And by God, we cannot get into this podcast because we're over already. We have a long way, and we still have to talk reserves.
Still got to talk reserves.
But I do think that that's something worth mentioning is that hopefully that they find a way so it doesn't end, because last year ended on an Anthony Davis free throw.
Yes. Yeah, that was really anticlimactic. I think it's tough. I think you're going to get less like fouls on purpose because you're trying to get to a certain number, but if it so happens like it did last year where Anthony Davis gets fouled, he just needs to make one free throw to end it. There is some pressure, tensity, but it was also like Anthony Davis is going to make the free throw. So,
yeah,
a bit anticlimactic. But let's go into the reserves now.
All right, let's talk the reserves here. So your Eastern Conference reserves are Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, which was surprising to me. Julius Randle, another surprise, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Vucevic. A lot of question marks here on the Eastern Conference reserves.
Well, in contrast to what the Western Conference has going on, where like the West was very much like these are your all-stars.
These are your guys.
These are your best players. You have a couple guys that might make arguments to get in or not, but pretty much like your first 10 and 11 is all like straight up, you know who you're just going to be in there.
The Eastern Conference
is not like that.
They got some snubs.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they've got some guys that are interesting to me. Zach LaVine is balling out this year, and I'm happy he's an all-star, but also Zach LaVine is an all-star. which is weird.
I mean, it's weird, but
Is he the first Bulls All-Star since Derrick Rose?
ooh.
Did Jimmy Butler make one when he was a Bull?
That's gonna be a Google thing later, because I'm sure Jimmy Butler had a chance. I'm sure I kind of feel like Joakim Noah probably had an All-Star game after
that's a good one.
After Rose too. So Levine is the 7th best scorer in the league right now, putting up a solid 28.6, which is awesome. And if we're gonna use the same argument with Bradley Beal, he was number 1. Zach Levine is only
Jimmy Butler made it in 16-17
okay.
as a Bull.
Jimmy Butler. Gotta love Jimmy Butts, who, by the way, is not an All-Star.
Not an All-Star.
He
had a rough year, though.
Yeah,
he's having a rough year. But anyways, continue.
Zach Levine, I think that Zach Levine totally deserved it and totally earned it.
I couldn't agree with you more. He's just not your household name other than the guy who can dunk.
No, he's the guy who
can play.
He can totally play. I mean, putting up 28.6 points per game is not an easy task. He is on a bit of a weaker team, but they're fighting for the playoffs right now. And, kudos to him. Go get your first All-Star game. I think the other two guys that I think are the guys that you would want out if you wanted someone else in are probably Vucevic and Randall. And Simmons. I'm going to put that out there. I don't think Simmons should have been an All-Star this year.
That's tough.
I think that he's more name brand and more value, and he plays for the number 1 team, but
he brings so much on the defensive end that doesn't get stats wise.
Drew Holiday and Patrick Beverley aren't Marcus Smart.
Patrick Beverley's a terrible defender, and Marcus Smart has been hurt.
I'm just saying, none of them are making All-Star games anytime soon.
Rebutted them.
Yeah, but none of them are making All-Star games at any point, because they're not going to be
they
guys
don't
that
score like Simmons does.
The 12 points per games that he averaged?
Ben Simmons is averaging 16, 8.5, and 8.
Okay, great. How many 16-point per game guys do you think are in the All-Star game?
That are averaging 8.5 and 8? I don't think any.
I don't look. I think that Simmons is playing good, not great this year. His defense is the biggest part of his game.
He will be an all-defensive first-team guy without a doubt in my mind.
I totally agree with that. But defense does not get you into the All-Star game.
Rudy Gobert gets in just on defense alone.
That's not true. He's one of the best rebounders in the game, too.
Okay, well,
his rebounding stats are great. Look, I mean, Simmons puts up 16, 8, and 8. That's good, not great.
Good, not great?
Yes, that's good, not great.
Are you kidding me?
No. That's it. Okay.
What?
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go over some of the guys that did not make it that may have had a chance.
And I will rebut if they're averaging 16, 8, and 8.
No, that's fine. So here's guys that may have had a chance but didn't make it. Chris Middleton could have had a chance, didn't make it. Drew Holiday could have made a chance, didn't make it.
Simmons.
The guy that I have a big problem with not making the All-Star game this year is Domantas Sabonis.
That I agree with. That I will back you on is Sabonis, and he's not even listed on some of the snubs list,
dude.
Which is wild.
Shams left him off his snubs list,
which is wild to me. That I will take, but I don't know if I'd replace Sabonis with him. I would replace him with Vucevic. I would take Sabonis over Vucevic any day of the day.
Vucevic kind of shouldn't have made the All-Star
I mean, he's
game.
averaging a career high in points. That's great, and he's a double-double machine, but Sabonis is a double-double machine on a better team.
On a great team. The 4 seed doesn't have a single All-Star. Even Brogdon could have been considered to be an All-Star this year. Anyways, past them, going to the Raptors. Siakam and Van Vliet.
Both have played terrible this year.
Not terrible. Not terrible. You're the 5th seed in your conference. Van Vliet is putting up...
Which is what, 500?
Van Vliet's putting up 20 points per game on 38% from 3 and 40% from the field. And Siakam is putting up 20 points per game, 4.5 assists and 7.7 rebounds on 45% from the field. That is all-star. I would argue that Siakam should be in over Ben Simmons. I would argue.
I disagree with that.
I think that Sabonis should be in over Vucevic,
I would agree with that.
Siakam should be in over Ben Simmons. Anyways,
I don't agree with that.
Anyways, other guys that we could talk about. Kemba Walker was a starter last year. He didn't make it. He's been playing pretty bad this year, though.
Yeah, playing terrible.
Let's see. Gordon Hayward probably would have had a chance, but honestly, probably not. Miami Heat have Bam and Jimmy. Jimmy didn't play a whole lot. He struggled a little bit. Bam probably should have made it.
Bam struggled this year, too.
Yeah, I mean,
Bam's shooting splits are not good. Also, Ben Simmons shoots 57% from the field.
Terrific.
I'm just saying,
look,
you
for
are
a guy-
hating on this
for
man.
a guy that never shoots from anywhere outside of 5 feet. I hope you shoot 57% from the field.
I'm just saying, a 16, 8, and 8 on 57% from the field is ridiculous. And you can't just write that off like it's nothing.
I'm not saying it's
You've
nothing.
been talking about wanting the Blazers to trade for Ben Simmons all year.
I think Ben Simmons is great. I love Ben Simmons. I'm just saying this year I don't think he should have been an all-star. Anyways, other guys that could have been, Trae Young was a snub.
Trae Young with 20, I think he's averaging 27 and 9, which is wild.
So Trae Young is definitely an interesting one. Another one is Russell Westbrook, who's put up 27.
Westbrook's kind of been bad this year.
Dude, he's
Trae Young is averaging 27 and 9.5.
Yeah, and didn't make it.
And he was a starter last year.
Yes. Both Kemba Walker and Trae Young were starters and did not make it this year.
That means you know what that means is they value defense here on the Eastern side.
The East Coast really values defense.
Ben Simmons made it.
I think Westbrook is kind of an interesting case. He's averaging 20 points per game, 9.7 assists, and 9.7 rebounds, like super close to a 20-point triple-double. And it's kind of like, well, no, you're not going to. We don't care about that anymore, so you're not going to be an all-star.
That's wild.
So
that being said, I think people have kind of had enough with Westbrook.
Yeah.
His antics, his whole just like demeanor, I think people are just kind of done with it.
Mm-hmm. And then the other two would be Colin Sexton on the Cavs, and shout out to my boy, ladies man Tom, with Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant, the ultimate snub.
The pride and soul of Detroit.
The ultimate
Tom,
snub.
if you're listening, we talked about Jeremy Grant. Here you go, buddy.
You're welcome. There's your Jeremy Grant reference.
He got about 30 seconds, and that's more than he should have gotten.
No, overall, I don't like. I think I would have wished that Vucevic, of all people, probably didn't make it.
My big qualm is Sabonis versus Vucevic.
Yes.
That is my big problem.
I
Other
totally
than
agree.
that, I don't hate it.
The rest
Trae
of it-
Young is interesting. But if I were to take Trae Young, I probably would have taken Kyrie out, which is wild because Kyrie hasn't played that many games.
Yeah. He just like left for a while.
Yeah,
it's weird that we just kind of forgot about the fact that Kyrie was like, I'm not gonna play for a week. Goodbye.
Yeah, so Kyrie didn't play that many games. So I think he could be questionable. Julius Randle, I think, is just a lock. He's been playing out of his mind.
Great on a playoff contending team. He deserved it.
My two weakest people in the East would probably be Kyrie and Vucevic.
Yeah.
Those are my two weakest links. Yours would be Ben Simmons, which I will fight you tooth and nail on. But yes, Kyrie and Vucevic. I would swap Sabonis with Vucevic, and then I would start Harden and then have Trae Young in for Kyrie.
And that's fair. My biggest qualm is Sabonis not over Vucevic. And again, let's see how many guys end up dropping out.
This is another good thing.
And let's see what guys end up getting picked up. I'm willing to bet Sabonis is number one.
Yeah, Sabonis has got to be the Devin Booker of the East.
Yes, exactly. If someone backs out, Sabonis will be the first one in, and then after that,
which is wild because
we'll see who
again,
else
he's
gets
not
in.
on anyone's like snub list.
Yeah. It's weird. I can't.
Where's the Sabonis slander coming from?
I cannot.
Like, what the hell,
I
guys?
cannot believe that he didn't make
This
it.
is wild.
But there's your all-stars.
Yep, there they are. East, West, we made it through them all. This was one of the more fiery podcasts we've done.
You and me don't disagree a whole lot, so this was fun.
When we do it, it's kind of fun. What is this? Whistle Pig Piggyback with us today. Good times, man.
Hey, it leads to really great times.
Yeah. All-star.
And shout out to our audience, Sophie, over there on the couch.
Yep.
Thank
She's
you,
here
Sophie.
listening to us, having a good time. Hopefully. We'll see. We'll find out if when we're off mic. Whistle Pig here with us today. This is your Eastern and Western Conference All-Stars, and we kind of broke them down, gave our takes. We'll be back again next Wednesday. We've got some more fun stuff coming up. We've got some trivia coming up in the future. I've got some things that Mitch is going to try to guess, which I'm kind of excited about. I've been having some things on the back burner that little guessing game for Mitch, and
We're gonna test how dumb I am. It's gonna be a good time.
Maybe you guys could play along on our socials and stuff. And so we're here again, and we'll be back next Wednesday.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Cheers.